Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, Tanya Lee, and you're listening to Spiritually Connected with Tanya Lee. Today, we have a fun one. We're talking about play and we're talking about everything wonderful and the amazing Travis Taylor. I'm super excited. Travis is an award winning host of the Divine Insight show. He's an intuitive channeler, Reiki master, yoga teacher, and life coach. International best-selling author, too, I might add. With humor, compassion, love, and inspiration wisdom, Travis shares simple yet powerful techniques to help seekers access their own unique, intuitive abilities and tools to help them align with their best selves. Many describe Travis as a soul whisperer, one who provides a safe space for people to heal and become the person that they have always wanted to be. Using his powerful psychic channeling abilities, his heart and soul as his compass, Travis quickly determines what is holding people back from being their most empowered self. Can't wait to dive in. Please welcome Travis. Travis, come on.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm excited to be here.
Good. I'm glad. I'm so excited. So right off the bat, I'm going to talk about the book that we're both in, but
Yes,
featuring
yes,
you. I love it. It's called The Last Breath. It's such a great book. It made international best-selling author. Oh yeah, bring it
here it
forward.
is. Here it is, everybody who are viewing the video.
Travis, what number is your chapter?
27 starts on page 181 in the book.
Perfect. And do you want to talk a little bit about the book, or do you want to talk about what your story is, or part?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share a little bit about what inspired the story because, as we were talking about this incredible opportunity that we have to kind of share this unique yet similar experience that many of us mediums have had in our lives, and then to compile this wonderful book together. I was thinking, what is sort of a little bit less of the direct mediumship, proving life after death sort of story, or the ability that we all have to communicate with beings on the other side, including loved ones, angels, and all of that. But something that was a bit more personal to my own experience in life. And a lot of times I had experienced what I would consider to be, at one level, to be pain, suffering. My birth was, in fact, I died at birth and was resuscitated. And, I've had to experience a lot of things which were not comfortable, having PTSD and ADHD, HIV, being gay, having a lot of near-death experiences, painful physical traumas over my life. And when I thought about it from one standpoint, you can think, gosh, what did I do to deserve this? But on the other hand, what I realized is that what these, a lot of people use the term broken apart or broken down, or my heart's broken. And we think of it at one level to be, broken down, like I just said. But what I really realized in my own personal life was that I was broken open. And you're broken open to recognize the love that you know that you deserve, to live those experiences, allow you to grow and evolve as a soul, to become more compassionate, more understanding, more loving to yourself and others. And so that is the premise of the story, though the story initially involves the suicide of my mother, and my involvement in that, and her last words to me being, "The next time you see me, I'll be happy." And then the next time she saw me was when I was in treatment for drug and alcohol addiction for the first time. And she visited me in a dream, and I experienced for the first time the full vibration of unconditional love in my body. And I recognized that that one, she was still alive in some sense, and that I do in fact deserve love to experience. And it was my first experience seeing a being, on the other side that I could recall at the time. And so ultimately that's kind of the story that I talk about, is that, if we think about our experiences from the limited belief around I'm a victim, then that's how we will experience it. But if we really dive deeper, look bigger at what is our soul calling for in the moment, then we're able to experience it in the way in which we know we really deserve, which is that of love and expansion.
Wow. I love that. I have read your story. I read it a couple of times actually. And it was just, and I know a bit of the backstory from, us being in the group together. It,
Right.
it just, you have one of those, and I mean, everybody has a story, but you truly do have one of those stories that it just gets right to the heart kind of thing, hits you right there. So I feel you. When was the first time, like, is it in around there that you knew you were psychic, or how did you know, or a medium, or
I didn't even know, I didn't have any terminology around it. In thinking back around my life, I could say that I was intuitive, like I sort of knew things, but I didn't really have a language around it. And it wasn't until I was, sober for a couple of years, excuse me, for the first time, that I took this energy medicine class from this woman in Seattle area that was, though I was invited to, and sort of my method of life is really like, I always say yes. So it's like somebody says, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, sure, sounds fun. Sure, let's go to this energy medicine class with some weird woo lady in Kirkland and named Marie Manucherry. And it sounded like a cool idea at the time. I think that'll be written on my gravestone, sounded like a good idea at the time. And so anyway, went to this class and there was something that resonated with me strongly with her, and I just felt what I would now call intuitively that I needed to work with her and take classes from her. And it was during a Reiki class, which is a hands-on healing modality that I learned from her through the attunement of that healing modality, that I sort of recognized that I had these latent capacities. And it was only because I had never tried before. I didn't, it wasn't because it wasn't there. I just didn't ever try using it. And so uh, the very first time I tried to look for something that was going on in someone's body, I could see his pancreas was inflamed, and I explained what the pancreas did, even though I was a lawyer and my training had nothing to do with energy medicine and anatomy. I knew I was right, and he confirmed it by saying he had adult onset diabetes, which is a disorder of the pancreas. And then my instructor, Marie, who was standing like 20 feet away, she looks over at me and she says, Travis, you're in his pancreas right now, right? And I was like, yeah, you know. And so I was like, this is way too much fun not to do all the time. So I started to do that in addition to my day job.
okay, but I love how you just glossed over that really, really quick.
Yeah,
Folks, he was a lawyer, an attorney, not was, you are, in the state of Washington.
right.
Like, how do you go from structure, uh, uh, the law, the exactness of it, to spiritually, and I tease a little bit here, but spiritually hippie like, like, and that's
Sure.
how people often perceive us as mediums and spiritual. They're like, oh, you're in that woohoo stuff, or like far out there kind of stuff. How and I love the awakening that you had. I love that, and I like how I say that too. I'm cracked open, like I
Yeah.
woke up. you know how do you go from being a lawyer to spiritual?
Yeah, and honestly, I appreciate that question because I don't think it's as much of a dichotomy as people believe now. I mean, this was 15 years ago almost that I took this Reiki class, and at the time, yeah, I mean, I had a very concrete, sequential, job as a civil rights investigator. And my job was really to like identify the cause of the discrimination, right? So I consider myself to have an investigatory mind. I always have been that way. What's the cause of the problem? And over the course of my professional legal career, it was always, doing HR investigations, doing implicit bias work. What's the issue here? And problem solving. That's not too much of a switch when you think about what's the cause of a health issue, what's the cause of the problem going on in somebody's spirit or their soul. I just called it, I had a foot in both worlds for a while, and I still do. And if you look at my birth chart, surprisingly here, I do not have any earth in my planets. So being even in the concrete sequential earth realm is somewhat challenging for me anyway. Like remembering to eat or certain things that are like somewhat easy for people, I just kind of forget about. And so for me, it's not as much of a stretch, I think, as it might be for others. But and there are some like holistic type classes that they're actually teaching in law school now around health and wellness, which can seem super surprising. But yeah, I certainly understand it can seem like, wow, what the heck? That's so weird. And for a lot of times, and in Seattle, I would be very cautious around how I would explain some of the things that I knew. Now, evidence-wise, you can't say, wow, well, the witness's throat chakra was shut down while they were answering every question that I answered. I saw that their heart closed when we talked about their relationship with their coworker. That stuff doesn't fly, but it allowed me to know what questions to ask to get the evidence that I needed, and it makes me pretty darn good at my job. I know when people are lying to me. I can tell how people are expressing their truth. So I think, and I guess it's somewhat funny and ironic, obviously, to have that experience, but it's my journey.
And I love that journey there. So before we hopped on to do the show, you were actually apologizing about your throat. So I want to come back to that because you brought it
Yeah,
up.
I
And the
did bring it up.
throat chakra. So
Uh-huh.
often, what we know to be true is often when the throat is, congested or anything like that, I lean towards the Louise Hay way, and I mean it's old Buddha way as well, is what's going on here. So
Mhm.
Travis, what's going on for you, throat?
What's going on for me? Yeah, and I had been experiencing an intestinal virus the last several days,
Oh,
and I hadn't been sleeping particularly well over the last weekend. And it was funny because this morning was the first time I woke up and my throat was literally feeling, I just don't feel it fully. So, as I would self-assess, I would say there is more that I need to express my truth, either through writing or speaking, that
mm,
will help unclog the throat chakra that I have been, in fact, holding myself back, and I have been, from being more open, sharing more clearly, and in fact, more publicly with things that I have been wanting to say.
I love that. I really
Yeah,
look forward to hearing more because I love your energy. I love what you bring. You have
thank you.
this not having earth in your chart is wild to me for you because you have just this calm demeanor. That might have been the lawyer as the attorney aspect that just, I'm cool in every situation, so to speak. might have preconditioning there. But I
Right.
absolutely love your energy. It's
Thank you.
it's very grounded, and it just you draw people in. Well, you draw me in anyways. So I absolutely love it. Love, love, love it. So for
Thank you.
anybody, you're welcome. For anybody, we talk about chakras. And we can get into it more. So look, what do you tell people when they talk about when we talk about chakras? How, for somebody that knows nothing about chakras, what would you explain to them?
I basically explain that a chakra is really like an energy vortex. It's like a translator between the non-physical and the physical realm as it enters and leaves your physical body. And I just basically explain that there are 7 primary chakras in the body that have a job or responsibility to govern both a physical, a mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect of that area of the body. So as we were talking about the throat, since that's the one that we were focusing on earlier, the throat chakra is vibrant blue, kind of like in this picture above me. It's this vibrant light blue, and it comes in through the back of the neck and out through the front, and it governs the throat, the teeth, the gums, the jaw. So if you're prone to issues like even just, if you're just like somebody who just tends to like have throat stuff going on, then doing throat exercises of that chakra will help illuminate that. And most of the time when I've experienced a client with that issue, it's normally that they're not being honest with themselves as it relates to their most primary partner in life. There's something they're holding back from. Maybe they're not being their entire self with that person, or feel like they can't be, or they're holding back in their life in some way.
I love that. And I agree with that actually. I do that quite often too. You know what? You and I have so much in common, and I mean I find that with a lot of stuff. So, um, except I took the forensic sciences way of learning how to
Ooh,
tell when somebody's lying, right?
ooh, that's cool.
So I learned in a different, and as a medium, I think we intuitively pick up senses. I mean, sometimes I don't think we give ourselves enough credit in that we have learned a lot. We tune in a lot, and it's not that everybody can't do it. We all can do it. It's just how. So somebody that doesn't know how to tap in, what would you suggest to them? What should they learn first?
Yeah, and I think the first thing that I would encourage folks to explore is more of a self-assessment. Now, and that's really about what your language is. So, if you think about uh, intuition as being in our third eye, which is the sixth chakra. It's purple. Here we are. I've got all the colors here behind me. This kind of purple, bright purple. Imagine that the universe wants to communicate with you all the time, is ready for you whenever you want. Just imagine that to be true. And then imagine that you, and in fact, to your question, I would like to learn how to communicate with the universe more concretely in my life. That's an affirmation. So I would say that exact thing several times a day. And then I would say, universe, please communicate to me in a way that I can easily understand. And then recognize that we have five senses. You have clairaudience, well, you have sight, sound, touch, taste, and hearing. For each of those in the physical body, there's a non-physical clear language for it. So essentially, clear hearing is clairaudience, clairvoyance is clear seeing, clairgustance is clear tasting, I think, or clairalience, clear smelling. And it doesn't really matter which one you might be because they're all perfect. I think people tend to prioritize clairvoyance, like I'm not clairvoyant, so I suck at this. Which I think, it doesn't matter how you get to the knowledge, as long as the knowledge is there, which is called claircognizance, clear knowing. So if you know what you know, you don't have to know how you get there. And so don't focus on trying to see something if you're a clear hearer or just a clear feeler. You just feel it. And if you feel the thing, so when you start developing your intuition, it's great to ask the universe to share with you a sign that can tell you where to start, what is my primary language, and then focus on that for a while. And when you start, what I've noticed is it works faster when I am trying to get information for other people. Um, However, I think that also has a tendency to allow me to ignore my own wellness, which is part of what we can often do as healers, or we want to just focus on other people. But you can't pour from an empty cup. And so it's important to nourish yourself in the process. And I'm still learning this. Obviously, I'm sick. That doesn't happen too often. So I think that's kind of a great place to start.
I love that. That's absolutely perfect. Yes. And start small and give yourself a break too, right? Like we're not perfect. We didn't start out doing this. We're still not perfect. And I love how you said
Right?
that too. I'm like, if I'm not in my own classroom teaching, I'm in somebody else's learning. So, and that will never end ever.
And I wanted to share a little bit
Yeah.
about why you were mentioning the story and why I chose the story that I did. And it's kind of interesting to me because I'm not a classically trained medium. So many of the folks in the book, and the book is called The Last Breath. So don't forget to pick up your copy if you want one. That they're
Love the
uh,
plug. Good job. It's on
welcome.
Amazon, guys. Amazon.ca.com.
Yeah, and so is that isn't my primary thing. I started to do healing on people, and spiritual beings would start showing up. It wasn't that I'm trying to prove life after death. My goal was always what's going on in the person, what's holding them back, and sometimes it was the person um, on the other side. And one client comes up in particular that I'm recalling that I was working on her, and I got this very strong image of this man and I described this person to her exactly, and she was like, "Bud?" that mother effer, it was, what the heck is he doing here? He was abusive and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to see him and talk to him. Now, notice what was coming up in her body. And I said, and I had to say, he's coming up because it's perfect for you, for your healing. There are others who want to communicate with you, of course, but the reason he's coming up is because of what he needed to express was how apologetic he was for how he treated you. And he did go ultimately, but the release and the healing that came from her, she shared, was greater than that of 3.5 years of therapy, um, just in one session. And it was remarkable. And that's why I think it's so powerful. Reiki as a modality, whether it's even in person or at a distance, um, because whatever is most valuable for you, the energy knows what to do. And I just facilitate it. People think I'm some sort of magician, but I just really help facilitate what energy wants to be communicated, released, and healed. And I try not to get in the way in the process, because I've had things like animal spirits will come up, which I thought was weird and unusual. I would see past life stories that were being lived out in people now. So, I think, as unusual as it might be, I think that we are multidimensional beings. And many of us, most of us, have had many lifetimes of experiences, some of which are still affecting us now, that we need to heal. And so that's why I do what I do.
I love that. Can we come back to that story? So,
Yeah.
the story of being on, I'm assuming she was like on a Reiki bed, or like I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
we were on a Reiki table. I was doing hands-on healing with her. Yeah.
So, in the moment that you had that epiphany, so I want to come back to that because I think that's really important. I have the same experience. So I have a stepdad, and he's raised me since I was very little. Now, my dad, my actual biological father, was not in the picture at all until later in my life, when um a few times we met up, and I have two other half sisters with him. Um the biggest part there is when he did pass away, and he has been gone for quite a while now. He was the first one, every single, and guys, psychic mediums, go to psychic mediums. We get readings.
Right. Yeah.
He was the biggest one. He kept coming forward, coming forward, coming forward. And he was at the, like, he passed away at the start of my, or close to the start of my mediumship journey. And I was so angry that he was coming forward. He still comes forward so often. But I was angry at him leaving. I was angry at him, cheating on my mom. I was angry at he didn't pay child, like, tons of anger there that's actually not necessarily mine, but I held it over. And the reason that exactly how you said is I needed to release him. I needed to, and not that he needs the forgiveness, because he is in pure love and light now, and that was his journey. It's that I needed that to go away from my body because it was causing me
Yeah.
disease. So I
Well,
love that. I love that you brought that up.
and I hate to do this, but I'm sitting in your right hip actually right now, and I'm uncomfortable with that experience. I don't know if you've had any problems with your right hip, but or your right, from your right hip down. I'm actually in your knee. I'm in your ankle. I'm not feeling incredibly balanced. And the right side of the body is the masculine side, and the root chakra is sort of formed from the ages of 0 to 7, right? So that's how we connect in with our source. And so what I would tell you, from what you're sharing, is that he might not need forgiveness in general, but he needs, that's another interesting term. It would benefit you to forgive him for the pain that he caused you, so that you can let him go entirely, and he'll continue to come up until you do.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And you're right.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to confirm this with you. And we didn't talk about this before. So the whole left side of my body, which again is a masculine, it's all out of alignment. My poor chiropractor is always on my case about the right side. And I had knee surgery on the right side, and it's causing me
Okay.
a lot of grief right now.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so sorry.
It's all good, and I am aware of what it is, and you're absolutely right. There is still some work that needs to get done there, and every year I work on it more and more and more. Just not quite there yet. And I am okay with that to an extent, of course,
Yeah,
obviously. Um, and I'll know in the moment when it's right to fully forgive. So that
right.
it's layers. It's layers. And so this is why I love talking about this. This is why I wanted to get this out. And not necessarily my story per se, but it's okay, you guys, to be human, to be not perfect, to
Right.
have this come up. And so he's been gone for um almost a decade. And so for me, it's, obviously still there, obviously still. So thank you for that. I I
You're
appreciate that.
welcome.
And
Yeah,
it's good
I'm gonna
value.
do, if it's okay, my hands are getting warm, which means like, so I'm just gonna do just a little bit of healing while we talk, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And as the continual empirical learner that I am, what's coming up for me lately is the accept of going back to when I described the feeling of unconditional love in my body. That wasn't complete. It wasn't permanent from then on until now. And in fact, lately my efforts have been to try to accept that unconditional love into my body again, and it has been difficult for me to do that. And it's going back to my mother
Mm,
and the maternal love that I know I deserve and want, and my belief that her transition being what it was quite traumatic, and I was involved in helping her plan her suicide
yeah.
outside of the knowledge of our family so that she could die the way that she wanted to. And that was part of my story. And what I didn't share in that story was my brother's later suicide. He died by suicide as well 4 years ago. And so, I've had that kind of very challenging and difficult, traumatic death within my primary family that has its own reaction to me. As much as I feel like I'm, gregarious and loving and friendly and kind, it's always like this,
Mhm,
you know,
exactly. Yes.
and it's more difficult for me to trust, to not feel like I'm going to be abandoned.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily, let people in all the way. As much as I might sound like I'm vulnerable, it's true, I am. But when it comes to my personal, intimate connections, it's a little bit more challenging.
So, can I probe just a little bit and ask, oh,
Yeah.
see, we're life coaches, so we're going even deeper. Is that Could that be why, you became an attorney?
Which
The
part?
aspect of, being able to, so for those of you that can't see what Travis did there, he went, one hand forward and one hand back, and it's like, "Yes, yes, come, but stop, 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 too." And I wanna talk about that because, to me, all this.
Oh, no, actually, the reason I wanted to get into law is because oppression really upsets me. It pisses
Mm,
me off. And so this was way before same-sex marriage was legal in any state in the country. And I always wanted to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves.
mhm,
And so I got involved I took sociology and criminology as an undergrad, and I decided to go into law school because it was, I wanted to fight for same-sex marriage and equality, and I felt like it wasn't being done enough. And so that was initially why I became an attorney in the first place, and why I got involved in civil rights and social justice up in Seattle for 20 years before I moved to LA last summer.
got it. Love that.
Yeah.
Eh, love it, love it. I love all I'm trying to process, my mind is going 100 times a minute, and me, I'm going, "Okay, you know what? We could totally take this every which way to Sunday, and I want to." Well, this might be an hour-long show instead.
Hey, whatever. I'm here for you.
So, the piece about becoming an attorney, so you could have just been a, not just, to hear me out, you could have been an advocate, you could have been a civil rights activist, you could have just been a leader, not just, but, but you chose law. So you really, had strong convictions,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and I still do, because I mean, I think,
Yeah.
on the one hand, I have white privilege, I have male privilege, I
Mhm.
have cis privilege, cis appearing. Even though I'm gay, it's not, I hate to say it, it's not apparent. So I have the leverage and the ability to navigate the world in a way that that is effective. And so, not to say that there are other strategies or other people aren't as effective, but that I know that my privilege affords me the ability to be in environments that give me strategically the ability to move the needle internally to organizations. For example, I worked for the fire department for 12 years as their equal employment opportunity officer and second to the HR director. And I was an advisor and project manager in anti-oppression initiative that the city of Seattle launched, which was called an anti-racist primarily initiative of looking at how the organization of the city was racist, not by design but by operation. So working in an environment with mostly straight white Christian firefighters, I had to learn how to navigate that as an out gay, psychic person. And and it was kind of a fascinating environment and frustrating as heck. I got to tell you, it was very frustrating often. But having to teach, this guy about, his male privilege. Uh, some people just don't hear it if somebody doesn't look like them.
Yeah.
They don't understand it, or they're just completely opposed. So I had the incredible opportunity to work with amazing organizers and leaders in that environment for a long time. And so I really appreciated what I learned from that. And although I primarily do healing work now, if you look at my website at divineinsight.com and all that stuff, I still do HR consulting on occasion, even though it doesn't sing to me as much as doing one healing on somebody.
I love that. Shout out to Seattle for being open to that.
Well, Seattle was the first city in the entire country to formally make anti-oppression work city government work. So they actually passed an ordinance called the Race and Social Justice Initiative, which basically made it every of the 30 departments' job to look at the way in which they were providing their services in a way that would oppress people of color. And it was actually true every time they looked at it. For example, City Light did a study early on to say, how long does it take us to turn lights back on in a power outage given the air or zip codes? Because demographically you can pretty much assess a high population of people of color in certain area or zip codes. And so they realized that the primarily zip codes of people of color had somewhat often days longer to get the power back on in power outages. Now their policies never said we're going to take longer for people of color to turn the power on, but they realized that every time it happened, it took that much longer. And what they realized is that, in the more affluent neighborhoods, mostly white, that everybody knew who to call and what number to call to report it. And when you have new immigrants or refugees or people of color who haven't had, sustainable, longer, home ownership by design, then you just had delays. So what they realized is they needed to change their policies and how they responded and turn the power on for everybody at the same time. So it was very fascinating, and every department, had the opportunity to look at the ways in which it was operating externally to the community and internally to the people that worked in that department.
That's fast. I would never, I mean, again, white privileged girl here, and I own that. I would never even think. I also love like the analytics of things very much. I'm a research kind of person, and I wouldn't even think that. Like no clue. And it's not ignorance on anybody's part in for what's happening there. It's all about, oh, I like it. I really like this. It's
Well, I
about
would say I would agree with you to a point that
fun.
I think it's not intentional ignorance.
No, no,
By
no.
design, it's unintentional,
Yeah.
and because it works to benefit you, whether you know about it or not.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. it processing in my head. I was like, "Oh, jeepers," you know? Okay, so you talk about being psychic and having to work with, or choosing, I should say, choosing to work with people that, might not, chances are, don't believe in it, or don't know where they sit with it, or haven't thought about it. And again, putting, gay and psychic in there. How did you manage that? I mean, oftentimes it's hard enough for me to say when I say to people, I am a psychic medium kind of thing, and I choose who I say that to. How did you navigate that?
It was very similar to that. I would get a lay of the land with the environment that I'm in, and there was very few out gay firefighters at the time. In fact, there wasn't even one um, in the entire department because of their fearful of their lives, frankly.
Yeah,
And that might be true in some part even still today for some.
for sure.
But for me, it was always meet people where they're at,
Hmm.
figure out where they're at, because I'm a bit of a chameleon because of that. I can I mean, I'm from Eastern Washington. I My dad is a cowboy, from the mid, Cheyenne, Wyoming. My mom's from Texas.
Oh
I
wow.
have a lot of relatives in the South. So I hate to say I can dumb it down, but I can organize myself in a way that relates to everyone that I work with, pretty much. So I'll meet people where they're at, and then obviously I have my own internal work to do to learn and grow continuously, and I had those opportunities there, uh, because they had leadership training for people whose job it was to project manage in the department. So I got to have higher level anti-racist and anti-bias training that I could then filter and make real for the department. So I love to do that. I love training. I love the watching people's light bulbs sort of click on. It's kind of fun.
Me too. I'm fascinated by it. I'm not going to lie. It's why we teach, right? It's why we do that. So speaking of which, what are you currently working on right now?
Well, right now I'm actually working on sort of a bit of self-healing stuff because I've been managing some health issues, uh, due to surgery. I had neck surgery last year, and I'm still working through some of that. Working on promoting this wonderful book that we wrote,
Great book. Yeah.
and it's been a challenge with COVID as I moved to LA last year, and it's funny because I've been here over a year, and over half of it has been under a global pandemic, which is kind of funny. Um, and so right now I'm working on developing more online training opportunities and workshops. I'm going to actually be putting together my first distance Reiki training class. So I'll be offering Reiki attunement in 3 levels, first, second, and third level, as well as some other classes and workshops. I'm going back to finishing my memoir, which was a book that I've been working on here and there. And so that's primarily what I'm working on right now. And then, of course, I've got some new mentee students that are scheduling sessions at their what I like to say for folks is that I don't want to set a structure for you. I want to allow you to set your own pace. So I've got some folks that like basically they buy a package of mentoring sessions, and then they just like book at their own pace wherever they're ready to go on and move forward. So that's primarily it at the moment.
That's a really cool. I've never heard of that, working that way with mentees. I I'm very structured. My mentees are we're rigid. We're 6 months and I'm going to work with you, and then we do. I'm very structured. So I love the flow. So I have had people come to me and say, "Would you intuitively teach me?" And to me, that is, so anybody that knows me, I'm all about the structure. I should have been a lawyer. I actually started going in to be a lawyer and argued with a teacher right away. Anyways, it didn't work out. Everything's meant to be.
Yeah.
So I love that you have that. So there is people out there. I was not. So when somebody came to me and asked me about teaching intuitively like that and free flow it, that is not me at all.
Hmm.
and I'm very much more structured.
That's so hilarious because that is all me.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to get into that structure. It feels confining to me and challenging. I mean, I've done it. I have done year-long mentoring programs where I'm meeting with students once a month for a whole year, and I could do that. I'm just
Mhm.
not ready to commit to that right now. So I prefer having folks say, hey, I'm interested in working with you because I resonate with the way that you are and how you want to teach. So let's go. And so we set an initial session up. And in fact, I have a new offering that I put on my website for folks on the sessions page, which is if you've never worked with me at all, book a free donation-based 15-minute energy assessment. We'll just tune in and I'll tell you what I see, and we can decide if you want to work with me, what that's going to look like.
I love that.
Because
I think
people are different.
yeah, I think everybody needs to get that. So where can they find that again, Travis?
If people go to divineinsight.com on the sessions page, you can scroll down and look at the different things that you can book. Like you can book a half-hour intuitive coaching session or an hour-long intuitive coaching session or a 15-minute energy assessment. That's what I would encourage folks who've never worked with me before to schedule first. Unless they just know you're like, oh my God, I so want to work with you and I want to book an hour-long healing session, then I would say do that. Follow your intuition. What calls to you? And if you want to practice using your intuition, then look at this, scroll through those opportunities that I have there and ask your guides to light one up.
Yes.
Say, show me which one I need to book.
Mhm.
Something like that. So
I love that.
that's kind of how I would suggest for folks. And if you're in the LA area, I am teaching Reiki in person classes right now at various opportunities, and I still do in-person sessions as well. So
There you go. I love that.
that's what I would suggest for folks. Yeah.
Good. Perfect. Um, want to talk about the aspect of modality wise. So you talk about you do
Yeah.
Reiki, you talk like I want you to tell everybody all the different types that you do. So
Well,
they know
so
because there's quite a few.
Well, what I would say is like these things came up over time
Yes.
through
Yeah.
sessions, as well as I mentored under a woman for 2 years. So Marie, she invited me to mentor under her very early on, and I didn't know she had a mentoring program. I didn't know she had a year or longer waiting list. She just kind of invited me, and I think that was, she saw something that I didn't.
Mhm.
And so anyway, um, so modality wise, Reiki is one, and that's a part of any healing that you do with me. Um, Also, one thing that happened during, so I mentored with other women, and after the second year of mentoring in 2011, we would get together every quarter and work on each other. And during one of those sessions, imagine having 9 people working on you at once, right? And that's amazing. An incredible amount of healing is going on. During one of those times, um, I saw a phoenix fly into the room with my physical eyes, and it flew into my body, and I felt shift, a change, and I felt vibrational frequency of sound come through my belly up out through my voice, which I thought personality wise was really weird. But and I because I was, I never really liked my voice. And so um, that became a modality that I learned that's called the Phoenix Fire. So that's a sound healing modality that I now use that helps clear attachments from people's vibrational frequency or aura. And it also helps solidify, clear, and protect. So that's one that I do. Soul retrieval is a modality. And if there is a soul part that has been disconnected from you at some point in your path, uh, often because of a traumatic death, related to your spirituality, then I will go back and help you reintegrate that soul, which often allows folks to have the ability to connect to their latent um, abilities that they might be struggling with. So for example, if you're meditating and you tend to just kind of fall asleep every time. You can't stay conscious or focused, or you constantly second guess yourself because your intuition comes through, but then you reject it. Those are defense mechanisms that come up often because of a trauma. And so I'll go and help find the source of that trauma and heal it. And help you heal it, really is the point. And then I do depossession work. So if there's something kind of an attachment that has been connected with you, for example, I had a client that I worked with at a distance who was in Boston, and she initially, as soon as I got on the phone, she had shared, well, I shared that I saw her having 2 miscarriages. And I shared that with her, and the pain and suffering that I saw in her about that. And she said, yeah, that's so weird that you found that that I had 2 miscarriages. I've never met you before. And that's what the universe was sharing with me. And then so what I realized, which I thought was so weird but true, was that I saw her childhood home and what had happened with a young girl who was murdered in it before her family moved into it. And the young girl who could not become pregnant, she was too young. My client was a medium and communicated with this young girl while she was growing up. They were friends. And when my client left the home, this girl connected with her and never left. So as long as that girl was connected to my client, she could never maintain a pregnancy to term. And so when I worked with this young girl, I helped her go back home to the other side, based on her terrible traumatic experience that happened with her. She was so afraid. And so then my client became pregnant and then carried the child to term like immediately. So it was so cool. So anyway, I call that like a form of depossession. It's not like sinister, like what you see in movies and stuff, but sometimes we just have attachments because of our light and things. So I do depossession work as well. People's spirit guides might come through, so I might do a spirit, message, or an animal might come through. So I'm just like, listen, I'll just open the door, and what your spirit calls for will come through. So that's really it. It's a lot, I know.
That's it. Oh, I could just do a few things for you. That's a lot, Travis. That's a lot. And I love that you
One
go
medical intuitive.
right. I did want to bring that up. You go definitely to the medical side of things. Can you talk a little bit about that? How do you? And I did mention it in your at the top of your introduction, but I want you to explain what happens when you see somebody, just like you did for me, when you are reading somebody. What happens for you?
Yeah, so when I first started to do it, I would start to experience the pain that they had in their body in my own body. Now that's called empathy. And when I clear my body before a session, I basically set the intention that whatever comes up, please allow me to see what I can to help people in their lives. And oftentimes we experience ourselves physically. We want our physical expression to be the healthiest it is. And so that's why I kind of focus on that first. So essentially, and I used to take it on and feel it, and then I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to feel it. So I basically asked to see it. And so I guess it's somewhat unique, but I will ask the universe to share with me in the way that I want to understand whatever it is the thing is. So I'll be like, share with me. Let me back up a moment. When you were talking about accessing intuition, you said, how can I do that? And I said, well, ask the universe to share something with me in a way that I can easily understand. Now that could be feeling, it could be seeing, it could be hearing, it could be tasting. But with me, I basically ask the way in which I want to see it. So I'm like, please share with me a picture of what is going on in their body. So essentially what I did with you is I intuitively could see that the right side of your body from the hip down turned red. And then I went to my hip, and I could feel my hip felt off. So that was a form of clairvoyance and empathizing. I could physically experience what you were feeling so that I could understand it. And not because I have a hip issue going on in my right hip, but because I was feeling yours. So that's sort of a long-winded answer to say, I just allow the universe to share it with me, and in a combination, because what we forget about is that we are co-creators. The universe wants to work with us, not to show us every direction we need to go in our lives, but it's because it's a dance. We have to do it together. Medium literally means meet at the middle. So the spirit's coming down, I have to reach up. So I can't just sit at home and say, okay, bring my life to me. You got to start deciding how you want your life to show up for you. And that's also what I'm working on myself right now.
What? You mean I can't just sit on a couch and eat bonbons and watch soap operas and my life happens?
Yeah, it's sort of like I like to say, we pray for strength, but we don't wake up stronger.
Mm,
We wake up with opportunities to demonstrate our strength and perseverance in our lives.
I like that. That's a good way to look at it. That's good. I like that. Um, eh, Now I just want to I want to go totally off the show and just talk to you for hours, but we can't do that. So I'm gonna bring it back. Are you open to doing a couple of readings?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so full disclosure, and again, I'm always wanting to be transparent. I have when I invite Travis to be on the show, I had given him, if he's open to it, to doing four names, and the only thing I give is the first four names. Now, those four names mean something to me. They're part of my inner circle. That's how it works, and they mean nothing to Travis. Travis just says the first names. That's it, and you can
And I don't
confirm.
know these people. I've not met these people and don't know who they are, and I have not
Exactly.
been shown anything about them. Okay.
Get ready. I like it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start with J. Jay.
I see a workhorse. I see someone who is working hard. I'm seeing something physical, manual labor of some kind. Um, but I'm also seeing a shovel, and what that metaphorically means is there's really an opportunity right now to like put the shovel down, because there's some kind of ongoing pattern that's going on that isn't working, that needs to be reviewed and let go of, that's draining. I feel really drained. I'm tired. I'm feeling really exhausted. I'm not really sleeping well when I'm feeling this energy, and yeah, that's primarily it. Do you want a little more, or?
No, that's perfect. You know what? That's really important because he is going through, he's hitting continuous patterns and it's the same story over and over again. So that makes a lot of sense. He'll understand that. I like that.
Okay, great.
How about Catherine with a C?
Catherine, I'm immediately in the kitchen. I'm immediately like, I have this like beautiful space. I like cooking. I'm joyous. I'm jovial. I'm really happy. Um, but I'm also afraid of myself. I'm afraid of looking at myself fully in the mirror, and I feel quite teary-eyed when I want to give myself love. I almost feel like I don't deserve love. I have a hard time even looking at myself in a mirror, because I don't like the way I look, and I don't feel confident in myself. And so I would encourage Catherine to recognize that the shield that she has created of her physical body is a form of protection that she doesn't need anymore. And so, it's kind of funny to me. I hate to say funny, but it's kind of unusual that there are times when our body responds not necessarily to the foods that we eat, but our energetic frequencies of needing protection and padding, and so her when she starts recognizing her power and her beauty, um, the shield that she has created of her physical body will essentially, um, become more in line with who she really is.
That's brilliant. So she has a cooking show on YouTube.
Stop it right now.
I'm not even kidding, and it's fantastic. She is just starting to tap into her psychic side, so she's
Uh-huh,
actually mentoring with me, and she just is on the cusp of like just starting, just like we're
uh-huh.
like as I've known her for quite a few years, but just starting. She's fabulous in the kitchen, and you're 100% right about the body aspect. I don't want to give it too much away for her,
Right, 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 right.
you know. I don't have her permission. I know she'd be okay with this part. Um, but it's really cool for you to hear that, and I love that it comes from you because, I mean, I could tell her all day long. It's just bigger coming from you, and I think it'll have an even bigger impact. So that's a really, really keen one with regard to body issues that she has coming up, because she has such a beautiful soul. You're 100%
Mm,
correct there. Love that. Oh,
awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that opportunity.
yeah. All right. Are you open to doing maybe one more?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go with Val.
So Val, I immediately start to get giddy. I start to get really happy. I just want to giggle. And I'm actually seeing kind of like martini. I'm seeing a little bit more um, um, I don't know how to say it, but someone who I'd want to go out if I did drink, I would want to go out with her. Like she'd be the first on my list to call and go out and just and party and have fun and just really, really enjoy myself. And I see her as vivacious. I see her as loving. Mm. I also see a wall. And frankly, I'm having a difficult time getting any further because of that wall. And it is a bit of a permission type of a situation here. Is I don't necessarily like to, I should have shared this before. I don't necessarily like to do spiritual gossip. And this is something that, uh, when it comes to vulnerability, that for her, it would be something that I would want to share with her personally and to know her and to talk to her first. Um, I definitely see that she's somebody that I would enjoy being around. She's a lot of fun and so loving. I see the biggest heart, but I also see it not necessarily being received in the same way that it's given, and having a difficult time with that and feeling frustrated about that and not necessarily knowing how to receive the love that she gives. And in some sense, here it is. Here it's coming around. Some betrayal that has happened when it comes to love, and I'll say this next part in a different way because it comes to this. One of the first people that I worked on was a great friend of mine who was a volleyball player, and and she tells other people that I told her that she has an angry vagina. Now, I did not tell her that she had an angry vagina. What I told her was that when it comes to sex, there is a she's got there is some anger that is being expressed around men based on the betrayal. So, and I thought it was hilarious that she's telling everybody that I told her she had an angry vagina, which I just want to clarify I did not say.
I actually love that. I think that's and it's all in the interpretation of it all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear. And actually, that kind of makes sense. Not kind of. It does make sense for Val, and so does the walls up aspect, hitting on everything really well. Val is also, and I'm going to share this because I know she'll be okay with this. Val works in the legal field too.
Mm,
It's very
okay.
interesting. Makes a lot of sense to me. One more.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. This is Mary.
So Mary, the first thing that I'm seeing is like a garden or gardening. And I'm initially questioning that because I'm like, okay, are you sure? And I'm seeing like very comfortable at home, very much, I'm seeing a house dress, I think it's called, or something that's like something is like super comfortable at home. Does she? Well, I'll go and then I'll have you chime in. So I don't feel self-conscious generally, but I'm feeling super self-conscious right now. And so I'm gonna interpret that as her having some self-consciousness around herself, her beauty, her confidence. So her home is her sanctuary, therefore. So I would feel like it might be difficult for her to leave it or go out. Um, yeah, not incredibly outgoing in the same sense as I wouldn't call on Mary, was it? First, if I was going to go out, I'd be calling Val. Um, Mary, I'd want to go over, she'd be one to do like board games or something, and go over to her house for that. Um, lovely energy, but not, she's still finding herself. That's what I would say. Um, and frankly, I'm not particularly fond. If she has a boyfriend or a husband or something, I'm not particularly fond. I don't feel that I'm not fond of him. I don't I don't like his energy for her for some reason. Um, I think she's holding herself back in that relationship.
Hey, you call it as you see it, right?
I
Like I get it.
do. That's
I
why I
get
say it, and I'm like, okay.
it. And it's there's some elements to that that just know that I'm going to validate that for you. So there's some elements that I don't want to tell her story obviously, but it would all make sense to her. So let me just say that. Fair?
Okay.
I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. I want to just talk to you forever and ever and ever. And I'm sure the producer is going to have a fit. So tell me how listeners, thank you for those readings, by the way. I know they're excellent readings, and I know that they're going to really appreciate everything you had to say there. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
Tell me how people can get a hold of you. Tell me how to reach you. What does that look like? How do they connect?
So easy. So all you do is Google Divine Insight. That's my website. That's my podcast. That's me. So at divineinsight.com is my primary website. I also do Instagram lives, usually on Tuesdays at 5:30. So if you go _ Travis Taylor on Instagram, I will always post events and things that I'm doing on Instagram. If you want to be added to my email list, which I promise you I rarely send out because I hate getting them, you can do that on my website. But you can look at my website and go to the show page to look at the shows that I have posted. I have often some, pretty high profile folks. In fact, I just posted a show with Dawson Church, who wrote Bliss
Oh,
Brain.
wow.
She's
Yeah.
an incredible author, a Hay House author that I just spoke with a few weeks ago. That's posted up, and so you can go to that podcast, look at my YouTube page if you're more a visual person and you want to see it. But honestly, going to divineinsight.com, signing up for my email list, following me on Instagram, and then booking your intuitive energy assessment or a session with me would be the best way to do it. And then you can look for, I'll be posting up some upcoming workshops here in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant. Love that. Well,
And any
Travis,
questions, feel free to just
yeah,
send me an email, travis@divineinsight.com.
I love that. Oh, perfect. Look, throwing it all out there. I love that.
That's right.
Mr. Travis Taylor, thank you so much.
It's
We're going to
my
continue
honor.
on after the show. Y'all can head on out. Thank you so much. And I'm Tanya Lee with Spiritually Connected.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a blessed day, all of you. Thank you so much for watching and listening.